Hey guys, so this is going to be really my first video as I get back into YouTube, and I honestly have it all planned out and it's gonna be great. Like, I have a ton of videos coming. The sun is setting right now also, and the window's right over there, so I know there's gonna be like an awkward shadow. I've tried moving around a few times, but I'm using natural lighting. I don't really have all of the expensive gadgets that you can have to film, so that's just what I'm doing, and I just want to explain that. But right now, let's get into the video. I'm planning on breaking this video down into a few parts. So just wanted to explain that I've never been a big reader at all. Not that I've been opposed to it, but I just, there's so many other things you'd rather be doing. Like when someone says you should read a book now if you're not busy, suddenly everything needs to be cleaned, everything needs to be put away. There's 1,000 things on your to-do list suddenly that just popped up. At least that's how I feel. So I know that getting down to reading can be tough, so I came up with some tips on how to do that, but I also wanted to share some opinions of the books I have been reading lately, and I have a ton over here. So the first book I started reading, it's honestly, let's just say right now that it is scrambled. Like, I do not have a genre I stick with, and I'll explain that later. And honestly, I started this like 3 weeks ago, so I only have 4 books here, but just wanted to explain them. So the first one, typical romance girly novel, sorry if the light is coming onto my face now, is The Rescue by Nicholas Sparks. Honestly, it's really about a lady who has a son who has a disability in speaking, and he doesn't know how to say the words that he wants to say, and she's trying to teach him, but she goes through a huge struggle with that. I don't know why I said it like that, but she goes through a huge struggle with that, and then she meets a man in this country town that she moves to. I would say if you're into romance, definitely this is a good one. It's totally Nicholas Sparks, love story in the old country town, but if you're not, I wouldn't. There is action, there's suspense, but it's really a romance. So I would say if you're not interested in that, then don't read it. But I would say if you are, it's definitely a good place to start with because it was an easy read. Words aren't too big, words aren't too dense, it's a good read. Good, easy read. The next book that I read was Murder on the Orient Express. So this one, first off, I'll explain it if you don't know what it is, but it was a big blockbuster last year, I think. So I would think you would know, but if you don't, pretty much Hercule Poirot he's a detective that Agatha Christie, the author of this book, writes a lot about, and he has a lot of mysteries. He has a whole series of Hercule Poirot mysteries. I think that's how you say his name. And he goes on a train, and this train gets stuck in the snow, and there's a murder on it. And so his job is to find out who did it. Again, an easy read. I really liked it. The only thing that's a little bit more interesting with this book is bought this book before I saw the movie, fell asleep in the movie. It was a good movie, but it was like really late at night. So I fell asleep. So I didn't see the end, but I was told about what the ending was, and the movie is identical to the book. So I'm watching the rest of the movie right now, but at the moment, yes, reading this book, I read this book, and I knew what to expect in the end, so it wasn't as exciting, I would say. But it's an easy read, except it's an older book, so there are older words, older terms, and I think it's really easy to grasp what the sentence means, but definitely also a good one. Okay, the next one I read, I think I finished it 2 days ago, actually. This one was also a big one in the stores right now, was in the stores, and it is still now. So this is The Woman in the Window, by A.J. Finn. I would say, so first off, it's about a woman who has, I think it's called agoraphobia. If it's not, I will write it somewhere else what it is. But pretty much she has the fear of open spaces, or just like not leaving her home, or she has the fear of leaving her home, and she's afraid of open spaces. So she doesn't leave her home. She is heavily addicted to alcohol and prescription drugs, and she also likes spying on her neighbors, and one day she sees something in the neighbor's window that she can't fully explain, and it makes her question pretty much everything. So I would say also really good read. Was not a super easy read, so I wouldn't recommend this as being your first book if you're getting back into reading for a while. I found the one thing that was challenging with this book is from chapter to chapter, the time changes, so it can be the past or the present, and they don't explain what time period you're in for a few paragraphs. So it's something that you have to grasp as you go, and I think it's not as obvious, and it's not as easy to just understand. So that's a really good one though. All of these I've loved. This one I started reading yesterday and I'm almost done. It is a self-help book, but it was everywhere. I also have Post-it notes in it because it's like definitely something that I want to go back and read someday, but only certain parts. Honestly, it's just, you know, it says you are a badass, and this is the self-help book for people who desperately want to improve their lives but don't want to get busted doing it. So honestly, I just find it so motivating, and honestly, again, this is why I am doing this video in the first place and getting back into YouTube. It has been inspiring and has really helped me to realize that if I want something, to just work for it and go for it, and you get out, or you get from the world what you put out to it. So I think the tips in here are great and they're relatable. It made me think about whether there's a higher power or not, even though I personally don't believe in a God. I think it made me curious about the universe as a higher power and the law of attraction. So I would say, again, definitely a good place to start in self-help books. Okay, so those are the books I've been reading and my opinions on them. And honestly, I would recommend those to anybody starting out to read, except I might say that The Woman in the Window is one that you should read after being experienced a little bit more. But now I want to get into the tips. So I had to move spots because the sun keeps going closer and closer to me, which is really frustrating. But I have some tips on trying to start reading more. So my first book is try out every kind of book to see what you're interested in. I know there's the typical adventure action book, and there's a typical sci-fi, and there's a typical romance, and I at least felt like, well, this is a popular book right now that I'm hearing a lot about, I should like it because a lot of people do, and that isn't necessarily the truth. You like certain kinds of books, or at least I do, and I think everybody else has the kind of books that they like as well. So as you can tell, self-help book, thriller, mystery, romance, like all different genres. Again, it still has its own genre, but I'm also reading classics like this, the Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I have read before, but that's a good one. I have a few other books here that I want to talk about as well, so let me just get those. Secret Heroes of World War II. So I got this in high school from one of my teachers, but like, find things that you're interested in. Try everything. So I'll go back to that one in a second, but poetry. Never thought about me trying out poetry. Never. And then these are also other self-help books or just books and like improving your life, and I thought I would try those ones out as well. So I have those ones. And I have some other history books over there, speeches, like famous speeches in the world, stuff about JFK because I find him very interesting, women in war, just everything. Okay, so that was number one. Number two is set aside time every single day and read every single day to reinforce the habit. Honestly, just like anything, reading is a habit that you can build and a skill that you can build, but only if you reinforce it. And the only way to reinforce it is doing it every single day. And it doesn't have to be much, doesn't have to be reading all the time, but every day I at least set aside 30 minutes. Honestly, a lot of people say, I don't have 30 minutes in a day to just sit down and read, but there are so many opportunities. And this kind of goes in between goes into my next number, which is number 3, that says, read whenever possible. So it doesn't have to be one chunk sitting down planning at the end of the night that you are going to read. All it has to be is those times when you're sitting on your phone, when you're taking the bus, when you are waiting at a doctor's appointment, or I was at a dentist appointment the other day and read the entire 40 minutes while I was waiting for someone. Those times are the perfect times to read. I also think replacing social media with reading a book is really good for you and just beneficial for you. Not having the negative effects of social media on you as much is just really good. Next is number 4. When you finish a book, I always find this is probably one of the toughest things to do, getting back into the next book. At least I always feel like I finished a book, I need a break, I need to breathe, I need to take in what I just read. But really don't take too many days in between your books because you'll lose the habit. Just like how you had to reinforce it, it can be lost if you break it. And then honestly, because I have these tips, if anybody would like any other book suggestions, or if you want me to post about the books that I read every month, like just 3 books or something, or 4 books that I read in a month, I definitely would do that. But I just wanted to get this video out to say that I know reading can be tough. I understand that. I totally feel the same way, but it's so good for you, so good to do. Like, improves concentration, improves your vocabulary. There are so many things it does that I just think it's so beneficial. And if I can help someone read, or if I can recommend good books or books that I've been liking or books to try, I would definitely be happy to do that. So this is the best books to read and why you should read more. I will be posting more, a lot of times throughout the week actually. Also next week, week after, you know how it goes. But make sure to follow me on my social media, subscribe, like, comment, just so you can keep in the loop with me.